All right, here we are, Kinesiology 214, and this is an extension of the previous presentation where we talked about initial consultation, first time you meet with the client. And really what you're after when you meet with somebody like that is you're looking at trying to find a way to get to the why. What was it that brought them in there? Why are they sitting in front of you? And that then allows for goal setting, and the goal setting allows for motivating your client either through intrinsic or extrinsic type of motivators that can be either quantitative or qualitative. And I don't want to bore you too much with the psychological stuff, but we are going to get a little bit into it. So, the why is what brought the person in the first place. Why is it they got up that morning and said, today's my day, I'm done. I'm done. I'm going into a gym, I'm going to a fitness center, I'm going to make change in my life. And as I stated in a previous presentation, usually it's they're running towards something or they're running away from something, like they're running towards a vacation, running towards a wedding dress, or they're running away from a bad doctor's visit, or perhaps some bad health history. And so as a practitioner, you have to kind of figure out which way they're running and which way they're running from and to. Um, and the why is the underlying issue. Uh, there's usually a pretty darn strong emotional component tied to that. And this is kind of where you have to really look at this from kind of like a psychological, emotional standpoint and go, okay, as we mentioned before, I'm a change agent, or you're a change agent for wellness for your person. People like to stay at homeostasis. Well, to make a physiological change, there has to be a behavioral change. And for there to be a behavioral change, there better be some emotional component tied to that to help motivate them. And so people want to stay on the button. They like to stay in homeostasis. So they don't want to dig up these emotional little tempests that might be kind of running underneath the surface. So, you have to realize that while you're trying to be a change agent, making change, because there's an emotional component tied to the why on one side, there's also an emotional component tied to homeostasis on the other side that you're going to have to be able to use one to help push the other one along. But when you're finding out more, I urge you to be careful. For some people, they're guarded and they're guarded for a reason, and you have to be able to pick up on that. And you have to be pretty darn skillful in your Q&A, and you have to be able to know when to use open-end questions and closed-end questions, know when to take control of a conversation, and know when to let people speak. And this is a great example. I just whipped this up, and this is a very typical conversation. So this would be me. Clearly something brought you into the club, and in front of me, what brought you in? And the person replies, I'm out of shape and I want to get back into shape. Oh, okay, great. Are you looking to be like a square or a circle? What do you want to be? No, I need to be better with, and I have to have better cardiovascular fitness. And that's pretty specific because you know what, John? Usually people come in and they'll say like, oh, I just need to be in better shape and better fit or whatever, but they don't have a concept of what cardiovascular fitness is. I have to ask, where, how, what brought you to that conclusion? Well, John replies, I was running with my kids at soccer and I couldn't keep up. And you know what? That's not like me. I'm the dad that can run with the kids all day long. I'm finding either they're getting older and faster or I'm getting older and slower, and somewhere we have to make a change. And I think it's going to be with me having to get in better shape. Okay, John, I have to believe you're probably better off than other parents. I mean, you look pretty darn in shape. Why does this bother you so much? I mean, maybe we can dig into that for a little bit. And you know what? Honestly, my father passed away at a fairly young age, and he was young and I was young. And I want to be there for my daughters where like my father couldn't be there for me. And that is the why. It has less to do with the kids. Let me just switch to the next screen here. It has less to do with him and the kids. It's part of it, but really what's driving him is the history with his father. And you'll notice how, as you went through the conversation, he first divulges it's about the kids, but after a couple, if you will, whys, usually takes about 6 to get there, he opens up a little bit more regarding health history and the family history. And given that's the case, he's probably acutely aware of his health history and his family's history. I would ask him if I could ask more. I would be polite at that point and say, look, that's clearly a traumatic situation. May I ask you some more about that to find out more about your health history? Because you might be unearthing something that's very uncomfortable to John because it centers around the loss of his father, and he's very much running away from bad health history. Okay? You have to respect that. And so The why is going to be different for different clients. Somebody, it could be a parent passed away. It could be they want to get into a wedding dress, as I mentioned, a beach vacation. But it is the driver, and it's the key part of helping you establish goals and finding ways to motivate appropriately as needed. And so when you have a client, it's very easy to see the end game. I want to fit in that wedding dress. I want to lay on that beach. I want to run up and down the soccer field. And that's the easy part. The hard part is giving them their benchmarks and understanding goals they can hit along the way to hit that big picture goal. Now, these can include number of workouts, number of calories burned, this workout's easier than that workout, et cetera. But at the end of the day, they need to be SMART goals. And yeah, I'm sure you've seen this before, but they better be specific to the person. They better be darn measurable, actionable, relevant, and have some kind of time component. A great example would be, all right, Jennifer, we're going to do a workout today, and now in 3 weeks, we're going to do the same workout. And I want you to be able to blow that workout out of the water in 3 weeks to be able to see your level of fitness and how it's changed. That's very specific to her. It's very measurable, right? It's a qualitative measure, a little bit of quantitative too. It's actionable. It's very relevant to that person. And there's a time constraint of 3 weeks. So it's all in place. Now, there are intrinsic and extrinsic, and I'm not going to get into a big psychological discussion. This will be for another class, but realize when you're working with your people, that soccer player is going to have an internal voice talking with him about having an inner dialogue with him about his father and his daughters, etc. And you have to be respectful of that as you're motivating that person. I've seen some trainers flame out miserably in the way they motivate their clients, thinking they're really leveraging something, and it's actually doing nothing but leveraging and opening up a pot of bad emotional mojo that was lying dormant for 20 years. So just use caution on how you try to lever your people to hit the intrinsic motivators by having extrinsic motivators that might be negatively interpreted by your client. So you have to be skilled, right, at balancing these two and being able to hit the intrinsic buttons as well as hit the extrinsic buttons at the same time. And there's plenty of seminars and clinics you can go to pick up this information. Now, if we look at 2 ways to evaluate, and it's almost like you're looking at results, right? But what I'm asking you to do is not look at this in terms of a rearview mirror where you say, look where we've come over the last 6 months. I'm looking at this and saying, okay, this past week you ran a mile. Let's take that as an example at 8:30. 8 minutes 30 seconds for that mile. In 3 weeks, I want you to be able to run that, or 4 weeks, I want you to be able to run that at 8 minutes even. So you're looking at having this goal set out there on the horizon, and you use that as a motivational tool to have them reach their goal. And now that becomes, people like monetary rewards. I think it's a waste of time. Those do not motivate as much as intrinsic, I want to do better goals. And when you start tying into the intrinsic, that's really where you start having good traction with your clients and being able to motivate them. But like these types of tools, you can say, okay, John, we bench pressed this much tonnage today. In 3 weeks, I want to see you do 5% more tonnage, and we'll work on how we're going to get there. I want to see an increase of floating max, etc. But on the other side, on the qualitative side, when you start working with people, I set this expectation. Look, you're going to feel better. You're going to sleep better. You're going to be pulling clothes from the left-hand side of the closet you haven't worn in 3 years. It's going to be easier for you to get up and down the staircase. You're going to keep up with those kids on the soccer field. And really, you're going to have a refinement and movement. Your activities of daily living are going to be easier. Those are all quality of life type things that are qualitative. And they set the expectation down the road. And in a way, you're using them as a motivational tool going forward. And then you have to deliver little nuggets of motivation along the way to have them wrap themselves around the concept of being more refined in movement, pants for fitting looser, etc. But I want to just throw this out here to you. When you look at the qualitative side of anything, you can make it quantitative. Can you time yourself getting up the stairs? Yes, quantitative. Can your pants or do your pants go from a 32 to a 30? That just became quantitative. Fitting in the wedding dress, it fits the right size and you couldn't fit in it before, quantitative. So I would urge you to realize that much of what you're going to throw at people in terms of qualitative living and being able to set these kind of motivational tools for better quality of life, those things can be quantified, and you can measure those and you can make those accountable, and it fits back into your SMART goals. So with that, guys, my goal is not to have this be a psychological course, because that's not what this course is, but to have you kind of wrap yourself around some of the main concepts. I'm sure you've heard them in your psychology classes, but be able to have kind of an understanding of what drives people, what are motivations, ways to measure things, what is quantitative and qualitative, and be able to kind of incorporate that into your sessions and incorporate that into when you meet with clients one-on-one. So with that, guys, I'm signing off. Have a good one.